Joining us now is Scott Weber. We're excited to have Scott on. Scott is a regional manager in the USA for Y International, the letter Y International USA. And Y International USA is a part of the Lulu Group. Don't you love that name, Lulu? I work for the Lulu Group in Doha, Qatar, and they specialize in exporting consumer goods and food items to retail businesses located across the Middle East and India. And, of course, today's kind of our Middle East day. Well, it is kind of every day. We talk about what's going on in the news, but we spent an hour and 2 segments on the Yemeni crisis. And now we're going to get to the Gulf and especially what is going on with the Y International USA operations in Qatar and the jobs that they're supporting for us in that Gulf region. Scott, great to have you with us, man.
Good morning.
Okay, good. Good to have you with us. Tell us about Y International, your company, part of the Lulu Group, and what you're doing there and how it's impacting U.S. and American workers.
Well, we decided to set up an exporting branch here in New Jersey to basically, there's a bunch of expats spread across the GCC, especially in Qatar. And with all the oil and gas that's there, and Lulu Group has a huge presence there. And we needed to essentially have a presence here in the United States as far as warehousing and exporting goods across there, whether it be food goods, non-food goods, clothing, what have not. And that's what we do here. We set up in New Jersey to start with in 2016 to export to Qatar and abroad American goods. And so now we've grown exponentially to 200 plus people, Americans working here, exporting goods just into the GCC now.
All right, so when you say you set an export company up, of course, we love exports, obviously, because that's things produced or made in the U.S. that we're exporting to the Gulf, and they're buying from us. So the money's flowing our way, not out, which is one of the President's biggest priorities in reducing our trade deficit annually now, which is about $900 billion before his tariffs, like $880. So what are some of the goods that you're exporting there? And just walk us through that process, because I spend an inordinate amount of time on trade, but we never actually talk about how this happens, like how the trade actually happens. So I like the fact that we're making and producing things in the U.S., they're going to New Jersey, and then they go to the Gulf, and they pay us for that. How does that whole thing work, and what are some of the products that you guys have been exporting out there, Scott?
The easiest way to explain it, John, is everybody here in America has been to a Walmart or to a Sam's, a Costco. I just like to explain it very simply. Take a Sam's and a Costco, mash it together, put a Best Buy on top of it, and that's us. I mean, everything you see in a Best Buy and a Costco, we have here in our warehouse. We have to take it out of its box, we keep the same label on it, but we have to put a label in Arabic on it, explaining the nutritional value and translating it into Arabic so that they can read it, they know what it is, and then we have to repackage it, put it back on a pallet, and ship it. So we're taking every single household item that you see inside your pantry at home, that you see on the shelves of a ShopRite or a Kroger's or Pick and Pay, whatever it might be, and we're putting it on the shelves of our retail outlets called Lulu's over there, which are hypermarkets, and the consumers come in and buy them.
So the Lulu hypermarkets, is that U.S. owned? Who owns the actual Lulu retail outlets in the Gulf?
That's Mr. Yusuf Ali, who was actually just honored last week by the WMC with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Because he was for all the work he's done in India and globally through his charitable contributions. But Mr. Yusuf Ali is the sole owner of the Lulu Group of companies.
Is he an Indian national, Qatari national? What is he?
He's an Indian national, and he's based out of Abu Dhabi, which is where our head office is at.
All right, so he's in Abu Dhabi. Okay, now this gets more interesting. Okay, Scott, I'm so glad I had John today, and I know we talked a little bit when we met, but this is even more interesting. Okay, so let's just follow this, how this works. So is one of the reasons that you're able to put a plant in New Jersey and you're exporting goods to the Lulu stores in the Gulf and in Qatar specifically, is part of that due to the blockade and the state of Qatar looking for other avenues in order to get products and goods into their country on the shelves, or is that separate?
We were doing that well before the blockade even came. We were doing that prior to. We've been doing this all along. It just so happens it came along. That came organically afterwards.
I would think that would have made a difference in your level of exports.
It made it more difficult because as we used to use channels of traveling through Dubai, the Straits of Hormuz, and places like that, it's a little bit more difficult now to get into Qatar because we have to use alternate channels of travel now, of freight forwarding.
Okay, so if I'm shopping in a Lulu in the Gulf and I want to buy, and it's a kind of one of those all-purpose stores, and I want to buy a flat-screen TV or I want to buy a box of oatmeal, right? A box of Quaker instant oatmeal. These are the kind of products that you would be repackaging, putting it in Arabic, translating everything, putting it on a pallet, putting it on a ship, and shipping it over there, right?
Absolutely.
And so your company, Y International USA, how do you buy those? Do you just go to Walmart and buy them in bulk? Do you go to the manufacturer? How do you actually buy them?
We buy them direct from the manufacturers, yes.
Right, so you go to the manufacturer and you get it. And then when you export it over there into the various regions that you do in the Gulf states, do you have to pay a tariff? Is there an import fee, a value-added tax like they have in the EU, any of that? Like, walk us through how that works.
Yeah, we have to pay the VAT. It's just like it is in every other country. I mean, we have to pay all the bills of lading, the import-export taxes, and it's all gone through the agencies to clear customs. And we have clearing agents over there that clear everything through customs. We have to have everything cleared through the health departments, the various ministries of health. And once it's cleared, our containers are picked up. Either, like take for instance in Saudi Arabia, we have to have everything cleared through the Ministry of Health. It has to be registered through the Ministry of Health, and depending on which port it's put on, it's cleared through. It's put on a train and either taken into Jeddah, Riyadh, over to the Eastern Province in Qatar. When it gets into the port in Qatar, it's just taken into Doha and then distributed by truck to our central warehouses, where it's then put on the backs of trucks and distributed out to our hypermarkets.
When it's leaving on the pallet on the ship to go to the Gulf, Lulu's buying it, right? So Lulu has purchased it. When does it become Lulu's property? When you put it on the pallet or after it hits land? Does Lulu own it?
When it leaves our back door.
So as soon as it gets out the back door, they've paid you for that. That's a trade balance in U.S. favor, right? So if they buy $10 million worth of goods from your company in August, that $10 million goes towards the positive end of the U.S. trade balance, right?
Absolutely. And it's fully insured. At that point, once we put it in the container and it leaves our dock, it's fully insured by them.
Fully insured by them. So then it goes there, and then Lulu determines pricing, right? Because they have to factor in the value added, whatever import taxes they have, the cost they pay to shipping, the cost they pay to Y International. So then Lulu
packaging, all the cost of labor, everything that is put into actually creating the actual container itself.
Right. So they have to pay for all that, and then they have to bring it to market in a capitalist system, and they have to price it in a way that still is competitive with other products that might be coming from other places, and so they have to maintain that balance. And obviously, if your business has been exploding to the extent it has, obviously, from a price value, supply and demand standpoint, obviously they've figured that out, and obviously it's working.
Absolutely. That's why Lulu's is the leader in the hypermarket business, in the retail business in the Middle East as of right now.
That's just fascinating. And so how many people do you actually employ as a result of Lulu and a result of U.S. exports going from the U.S. out? How many jobs has it created for you in New Jersey?
It's really kind of amazing. I mean, once again, we started in November of 2016, and we started with a meager 24 people, and we've grown to 204 people in 18 months.
I'm sorry, I just missed that. You've got 150, or you say 115?
No, 204 people. We've grown from basically 24 people to 204 people in 18 months.
You have 204 U.S. workers employed at your plant in New Jersey as a direct result of U.S. exporting business, right?
Absolutely. And we're still growing. We're looking at West Coast operations now. We're looking at going down to the Gulf of Mexico, being on the South Coast, end up on the Great Lakes. We're looking at expanding to basically all four of the corners.
So I just want our listeners to grasp this, and I really appreciate you coming on, Scott. And some people would say, this segment's a little dry. No, it isn't, because you have to put all this together, because I spend a lot of time on my show talking about tariffs, Scott, because I'm a protectionist, and I'm proud of it. I spell it with a capital P. I don't run away from it. I've been a protectionist for 30 years. I'm against TPP, NAFTA, and all this stuff. And I like tariffs. And so, because I want to protect U.S. workers. But if you look at the trade dynamics here, you've got 204 jobs for American workers that are a direct result from U.S. exports going to the Gulf. Now, if you continue to grow this, the people that you employ continue to go up. These are U.S. jobs. Now, that's only the 204 workers working for Y International. As you're buying product, right? You're buying product. So you're buying flat screen TVs from whatever your manufacturer is, or you're buying Quaker Instant oatmeal. So you're buying from U.S. companies that are manufacturing the goods that then have to hire additional people to meet the demand of the exports going out. Am I right?
Correct.
So that's why when the president says we have got to increase our exports out of the country to continue to build our economy and how many jobs that means, what Scott has done is he has outlined for you exactly in detail in real life terms with a real company how this works. So it is thousands and thousands of jobs enabled because we have a trading system that is not punitive back to the U.S. Tell me about Y International and how you see your company growing, Scott Weber.
Well, what we're trying to do now, we're really only at about 40% capacity because we're just concentrating on the grocery side of the business as of right now. We still have non-foods to tap into. We still have the clothing side to tap into. We still have perishable produce, frozen goods. That's why we're looking at But when I talk to the directors that are in Abu Dhabi, we still want to fly into places and look at buying coffee beaneries, buying stockyards, buying dairy farms. I mean, there are a lot of things that the parent company that are looking at getting into. They like to have control from stem to stern on what we do. So we're in our infancy at growing, and Mr. Yusuf Ali is a visionary on what he likes to do. He's very diverse and growing his companies. I challenge anybody to go online and look him up and what he does. He's really reached out and diversified Lulu group of companies, and it's just an amazing thing. I mean, so we're going to be growing by leaps and bounds over the next few years, but we're going to take it with baby steps. There's no rush. I mean, this thing's growing by leaps and bounds all by itself. So we're going to be. I'm trying to slow it down so we don't grow too fast.
Don't slow it down, Scott. Step on the metal. Come on, man. You're Scott Weber, Regional Manager USA for Y International USA. Don't be slowing it down. We want more jobs in the U.S., Scott. Hey, by the way, I'm from New Jersey. Where's the plant?
It's in Lyndhurst, right next to the MetLife Park in the Meadowlands.
Sure. I know exactly where that is. Did you put your plant over, it might be right over Jimmy Hoffa, right? It could be. Have you guys thought about that, right? If you walk through your plant at midnight and late at night and there's nobody there and you hear a strange voice coming out of the floor, I guarantee you that's where they put Jimmy Hoffa, right down there.
They just might have.
Scott, look, thanks for being with us, and I love when we export goods. I love companies like you guys and what you're doing and buying U.S. product, buying products that are made in the U.S., exporting them out, hiring people, 204 employees in Lyndhurst, New Jersey. My father worked in Manhattan in the New York Times as a pressman for a very long time. So are the people that you're bringing in, are these full-time jobs, part-time jobs? What are they?
All 100% full-time jobs, working 3 shifts, 7 days a week.
Scott, it's a beautiful thing. A job is not red and it's not blue. It's about a paycheck and a family and taking care of your family, and it's green. Scott, thanks for being with us. Scott Weber, man. Thank you. Why International.